yours truly will be talking to Susan Allen, pet communicator. She's back to talk to us about animal communication, and she's going to tell me what she picked up on my daughter Sophia's cat, Honey. I can't wait to hear Susan's assessment of the kitty who rules Sophia's house. Stick around. You're going to hear a pet reading right here. If you want to leave me a message that might be shared on a future episode of The Dead Life and my Love Me, Love Me Not segment, leave it at 802-DEAD-811. That's 802-332-3811. You can follow me on Instagram at Medium Allison, on my Facebook fan page. You can binge on my YouTube videos to watch readings, including episodes of The Dead Life. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have abilities of your own and are looking to expand them and connect with other gifted people, go to deaduniversity.com. Well, Susan, welcome back.
Thank you, Allison. It's always fun to be with you.
You know, there's always questions about abilities, and a lot of my students have questions, and I don't consider myself a pet communicator or an animal communicator. You know, I can pick up on how they felt when they died, or sometimes distress, like if they're upset or there's an area of their body that's a problem, but I don't really consider myself a communicator. So with my students, it sort of seems that for those of us who read human energy, we use pictures of the subject to tap into the missing party. Like if there's a missing person, it seems that reading energy is just that, reading energy. It seems that people with abilities read those that we're drawn to help. So psychics can easily cross over between people and animals as long as you have energy on helping them. Do you find that to be true, that it has to do with the gifted person's intentions and where they feel drawn to?
That's a great question, and not asked very often, and an important one.
Thank you.
Especially when I first started, nobody taught me this. I just knew, I would just open the photo and I would send so much love to the pet. So it would relax the pet and I could get more information. So for me, yes, intention and of course the power of love is everything when it comes to talking to the pets and humans too. But it's just the pets, you just want to ooze love at them. That's how I work.
So for me, any pet that I've connected to either would be in my childhood where I just loved my cats or my dogs, and or it would be a friend of mine who was upset, and I'd tell him what I get, but I never claimed to be an animal communicator. I'm a medium with living people. That's my focus. It's just what I'm best at, and with a specialty in trauma readings. So that's interesting. And I like asking these questions because my students, I want them and I want my listeners to learn from all the best in the industry, in the ethereal around the world. And so I find this podcast to be such a wealth of information from the right sources. So one of the questions my students ask me is, how did you make the transition from amateur to professional readings? What advice would you give them?
Oh, I love that. I'll give you A and then B. So A is didn't quit my day job. My husband was terrified that people would find out I'm talking to animals. I went to a doctor, my physician, and he goes, "What have you been up to?" And I said, "I'm talking to animals." And he looked at me and said, "As long as they don't talk back, we'll be okay." And I was like, I'm not safe, because this is 18 years ago.
Right.
And I just stayed under my maiden name that nobody could find. And I did animal readings. And I would just get so much joy when somebody would book an animal reading. And I was insecure. I'd write everything down. And then I'd run in the back and tell my husband, I have a reading. And he's like, turn around and then you'll come back and tell me it was fabulous. And day in and day out, when I did these readings on the side of a big career that I was doing, hiding, I just fell in love. And I was able to help people and help animals. And it was transformative. And it wasn't until many, many years later when I lost my own pet that I felt brave enough to come out, because I thought if I could lose that animal that I was so attached to, who I feel came into my life to remind me who I really was. I was an animal communicator. Mm-hmm. And that was that dog's incarnation with me to teach me that. And when I got brave enough, I quit that career and I came out as a professional medium. And that's, I get calls from fellow healers that say, I have a client and she's talking to animals. Can you give her some advice? And I'm like, she needs to keep talking to animals, because that's how you get good.
Right.
And the evidence that you get when you, and people would say, well, are you getting paid? Yeah, I was getting paid a nominal amount in the very beginning, but I'd also get testimonials. And that's kind of how I built my website and my business. But it took years. I mean, I didn't come out with my real name for years. I was hiding.
I find that we live in a time, because people are so impatient and they want it now. They want it now. And I always tell the younger mediums, it took me a long time to get to the point I was at. And I fell into the TV series. I can't even take credit for that. I mean, I did live the life, but I just happened to live sort of an interesting life. I didn't do anything that other mediums weren't doing out there, but they sort of want the fame along with the abilities. And I always tell them, do the work, focus on the work, stop worrying about people celebrating you for what you do. Absolutely. We do this because it's our calling, and you're lucky to have a calling. Not everybody has a calling. I also find that most people who are great in the ethereal have a day job. And I do tell my students, don't quit your day job until you make more as a medium or a psychic than you did in your day job. So that's that's such a beautiful thing, because as a realtor, I would calculate my commission before I would even go to the house, and I knew I hated it. Yeah.
And with my mediumship, my bookkeeper is like, do you know how well you're doing? And I go, no, I don't look at that, because it doesn't matter.
Right.
I think spirit is always taking care of me. They fix your money. They help you as long as you're in service for others. And that's really, I think, everything. And, it's not that you just fell into it. I think it was totally meant for you to carry that with the show. I think
it was fated. Yeah.
It was fated for you to carry that, because you are strong. So I don't like to, if you said I lead with trauma and that's my expertise, I don't want anything to really do with that.
I hear that from a lot of psychic mediums and the healers. My friend Diane Goldner, she's like, I don't want to do what you do. I'm like, well, you don't have to. So that's okay.
Well, because you can carry it. See, your soul can carry that burden. I'm such a, like, when this first started with me, it was, I would see an animal like on the side of the road and I'd be in bed for 3 days. Like, I was having the real awakening. Right. Where I would be distraught. It's not like that anymore. So,
well, you're an empath on the highest level, and then you learn how to control and sift out the pain, and so that you can help others that are still. I always say it's interesting with what we do, because there are people and animals, in your case, that are walking around that don't know they're going to need us. They're going to need us. Everybody loses somebody. So if you're living in a world where you haven't lost anybody close to you, take inventory of each and every day that you have and thank God for the feeling that you have that day in that peace of mind. We're here to give the people peace of mind that don't live in that world anymore. They live in a world of people who grieve. So it's sort of our job to resuscitate them back to the living so that they can finish their journey in this lifetime. And I think what you do, what I do, what healers do, everybody can, I think, make sense of it in the clearest way, in that we're all empaths. And when animals or people who have passed communicate, they do it empathically. So they make us feel certain things. They make us hear things. They make us see things. So they communicate in different ways. But I think that's why psychics can cross over from animals to people, because all of it is run through our inner voice. It's all run through that center of people who have abilities, who are gifted, and we just know how to process the energy and make sense of the communication. If I'm explaining that well.
I feel like I'm with one of the best mediumship coaches around. Because when I sit with you, I'm like, oh, yes, yes, yes. And you just feel so seen and heard with you. I think that's why I love being with you on your podcast.
Thank you.
I would absolutely agree with you 1,000%. And to be totally honest with you, I had panic attacks at 4. So I wasn't one that wanted to see dead people walking through my house. It was terrifying to me. I couldn't watch horror movies. I still can't. I mean, I watch like cartoons a lot, honestly.
It's so funny how we're all wired so differently.
We're so wired different.
The reason I'm on the path that I'm on, and it's interesting, I saw something on Netflix, and it was the update to the Adam Walsh story. You know, the little 6-year-old boy who was murdered in the early 80s, John Walsh's son.
Yes.
That was one of the first things I saw as a child on TV. My mom wasn't paying close attention, apparently.
Obviously not.
And I watched the TV special, and right around the same time, the Atlanta child murders were going on. And I just felt completely drawn in to both of those scenarios. And that's when I decided I was going to be a prosecuting attorney and put bad people away. So that's what inspired me to go down that path, to end up in homicide, to then sort crime scene photos and see what was happening before the people were killed, to having the television series Medium and publishing 6 books. So that put me on my path. So weird children, I would say, I would fit into that class, that you should embrace your children if they're different, because you never know who we're going to end up being. And if we talk too much in class, maybe we're going to be a public speaker. That would be me.
I couldn't shut up in class, so that makes 2 of us.
But when we're communicators. It's straight up in your title. You're a communicator.
I can't even believe you said that, because it's so true. And nobody understood. My mother locked the phones. When I was growing up, they had locks on the phones, because she said I was running up her bill. And I called my girlfriends, and I was like empathically helping them at 7. And she'd go, why are you calling your friends love and honey? And but this one reading I was doing for actually, it was very, very early on, and I was reading a musician's girlfriend. And I don't think he'd mind me saying his name. He's written testimonials for me. And his girlfriend would always call me for animal readings. It's now his wife, and we were reading her cat. It was Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins. And I was reading her cat. I didn't even know she was his girlfriend. I didn't know anything. And all of a sudden I look across the room, and it was a picture of me and my dad, who was in the spirit world. And it just very lovingly changed into a man. And it wasn't my dad any longer, but it didn't make me nervous. And it was her dad, and he was communicating in such a loving way about his final moment, and he didn't get to say goodbye, and it was amazing. And I realized, I talked to the spirit world, and I said, if you communicate with me like that, and you do the movie for me, and you don't freak me out, and you don't walk through my house when I'm off duty, you've got somebody that you can work with. And that, and it's been like that ever since. And that was like 14 years ago.
But what you did was you established your borders and boundaries, which is what I think gifted people struggle with the most, is establishing borders and boundaries. You set those with the dead. You said, certain times I'm available. The rest of the time I'm in my own life, and you need to wait. I did the same thing. I don't find it hard to establish borders and boundaries with the living or the dead, but I find gifted people often struggle because they're empaths and they don't want to offend anyone.
That's right.
Whereas I'm an empath, but I think people should be more thicker skinned than they are. So I'm like, accept it. It's what it is. And also trusting their abilities, having confidence seems to be the second biggest hurdle for people with abilities. And I think that comes through what you said. And I did the same thing, practice. It's through trial and error. You learn in the world. The world's our classroom, and you have to be comfortable with that. And I always tell my students, don't be afraid to be wrong or to be told that you're wrong. You're going to get to a point of accuracy where you know your accuracy, and you actually know when the living are lying to you and that you're not actually wrong and her husband is cheating. So it's interesting how that works, but everybody that's gifted has to figure out their own style. And I think you have something to teach to people who feel drawn, especially to animals.
Yes.
There's a lot of people out there that ask, how do I become an animal communicator? I think it naturally happens.
It does.
It's just about figuring out where you're going to take it from there.
Yeah, it totally, I wasn't, and also, I had a friend recently say, I'm doing spiritual work because that's a big profit industry. And I'm like, it doesn't happen like that. Like,
no,
you have to have like a calling, something switches on and off.
Yeah.
Some unusual occurrences.
You may have experienced this too. Having to fix somebody that's somebody else that claims to have abilities, but does it for the wrong reasons.
Yes.
Therefore, the information comes through not in the best interests of the client, comes out of ego from the person that's doing the reading, and you end up having to put that person back together that was their client. So intention's so important.
I think I fell prey to that. I mean, when I was a young woman, I went for a reading and somebody said, you have 400 cauldrons of witches. And I'm like, oh my God, being the frightened self that I used to be.
Only 400. That's fine.
I mean, there's a lot of not so good people out there, and we need to hold the light for the people that are trying to be light workers and trying to do the work, and boundaries are so important. I have some people say, like, I don't have an on switch and an off switch. I do, in the sense, I'm not working. I'm having dinner with you. I'm not reading you. Mm-hmm. I don't have any desire to read somebody I'm sitting and having dinner with. And yet people would picking up anything. No, I'm off. I'm off the grid. I'm off the time clock.
People don't realize that is actually one of the rudest things you can do to, I guess, anybody from any profession, but especially with a psychic medium, because we have to harness our energy and give it to you to read you. So we're giving our energy away to bring through the messages. So it actually tires us out, as opposed to asking an accountant a simple question, maybe at dinner. It's not the same thing. And I don't think people realize that, but I've been in that situation many times where you have, and they're very curt about it. They'll just say, what do you get on me? Well, I get that. I don't want to talk to you. I'm going to go across the room and get a handful of popcorn shrimp and blow out of this party. How about you?
100%. I love it. And you're so true. I had a dinner party at my house. I would love to see you when you're in LA, but I had a dinner party at my house, and Sydney Pollack's manager was sitting right across from me. And it was the first time I had met him. And he was just gooing about how much he loves Sydney and Sydney's wife, and he still sees Sydney's wife. And Sydney appeared behind him, and I couldn't not give the messages, because when there's so much love is what brings, spirit around you too. When you're not on the clock, you almost can't help it, because you're engulfed in the story of the love and the passion of what a great guy. And
see, that can be different for you because you were in a situation with somebody that you're very comfortable with and that you know well.
Oh, I didn't know him. It was his first time at my house. My friends that I loved wanted him to be there because they weren't from LA. So I said, have him come.
So for me, I would say, would you like to know if I'm seeing something? But normally I won't cross that line, because to me, it's like allowing him to have dinner and be in his space, just like I want to have dinner, be in my space. But after a couple glasses of wine, sometimes things come out.
Exactly. It was all good. It was just a short thing. But yeah, I don't, the whole thing with walking into a store and feeling energy and it's not, it's not me.
Yeah, the ambush readings, I tell my students, I'm like, don't walk up to people on the street and just tell them what you're getting. It's not okay. They may not be mentally, spiritually equipped to deal with the information you're giving them, even if you're accurate. And this is one of those situations where they have to put ego aside of what they want to do because they feel like they have to, and putting the feelings of that other person above that. If it's somebody you know, and this is another workaround for the listeners, if you get messages and it's for somebody you know and you don't want to cross a line, you can just say, I had a dream. Because
yes,
when you say you've had a dream, people are more understanding of it, and just say, do you want to know what I saw? And they almost always say yes, and then share it with them for sure. But it's an easier way where you don't have to worry about them coming back to you for more information. I think that saved me many times early on in my career. The whole, I had a dream. In reality, I get my information awake, not in dreams, as entertaining as it is in medium. I feel so bad for Allison on the show because it's like she never gets a good night's sleep, but I sleep fine. So I have a question.
Yes, please.
Do you have a stronger connection with particular animals? I mean, do you vibe more with cats or dogs or, more than others, or is it all the same because it's just empathic?
It's all the same. Yeah, I love animals. I mean, I love fish. I'll even talk to a frog that bit the fish because they put it in the same tank. I mean, my chiropractor was like, it's attacking the fish, and the frog's very aggressive. You got to, and the fish is very not happy about this.
Have you ever thought of taking your video camera and go to the zoo and be like, that giraffe thinks that hippopotamus needs to push a pile of hay away?
Although
have you ever thought of just recording yourself?
No, because I can't do the zoos. I hate to say it. I can't do the zoos.
Because they're behind bars. Like
I had a horse trainer's wife read with me, but I didn't know he was a horse trainer, and I read for her, and I gave her a really apparently good reading, and they invited me to Santa Anita, and I had to talk to a horse, and basically I said, you're not winning. And he cares about you. And she said, no, I'm only a number. And I said, no, he actually cares about you a lot. And I knew she hadn't been drugged. He was a really good guy, really good trainer. And I was in the back where all the horses are with the trainer. And I said, it would be interesting, though. They might really believe that I'm doing this. This is early on. If you did win, could you give it a shot? And I bet on her, and she actually placed.
Good.
But I never wanted to go back there because of the frequency there. And it's hard for me to go to a zoo, even though I love zoos, because I get to see all these great animals and not have to fly to Africa.
Right.
But the frequency in a zoo, a lot of the times, unless it's like San Diego Zoo, where they have these huge enclosures, doesn't feel like it's a high vibration for me. Even though we need our zoos for education, we do need them.
I've actually brought through a zookeeper who was killed by the tiger. So I've been on the flip side of that, of feeling the fear of the person. And she loved animals. She was a zookeeper, and she was the one that would go in and pet them and spend time with them. And at the end of the day, some of them, what did I see in the meme? It called them murder kitties. I want to pet the murder kitty on this meme. It had a lion on its back and made you want to rub its belly. And I just thought, yeah, I guess that's right. They're carnivores. I guess that's accurate. So, okay. But it was one of the most horrific readings I ever did, just the manner that she died. So there are animals that do attack, how do you feel with those animals compared to like a domestic cat would be very different than, say, a tiger or a jaguar?
I don't feel bad or different for animals that have to kill for their prey, or it's kind of all the same. I've never been asked to talk to a lion, but I've been asked to talk to an elephant, and I knew
I love
what
elephants.
she had died of, and they concurred that. And it was in sanctuary, and she wanted to give messages to the people that took her in from a horrific situation, like, you know, chains in India or someplace. I don't remember her full story, but I've never talked to, like, intentionally a tiger or a leopard. I talked to a lot of cats. I once talked to, I told somebody, I talked to a farmer, an organic farmer here, and she was literally hysterical. Like, her crops were being eaten, and she was like, can you tell the gophers? Like, I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. And the gopher came right into my consciousness and said, it's not us, it's the deer. And she said, damn it, I saw deer footprints, but I didn't think they liked this particular vegetable or whatever she was growing. So I thought that was so cool, because it was my first time being hired to talk to wildlife. My encounters were always so interesting. When this first happened during the life of my dog that I wanted so bad. I mean, most women look at shoes at night at 11 o'clock. Every night my husband was like, what are you looking at? Frenchies. I had this Frenchie fever, you know, in 2007, 2003. And I just continually learned about the breed. Now I'm into pugs, but I have rescues. I have a Frenchie rescue.
I had a pug named Eleanor Roosevelt. I loved her.
This pug is like the most.
They're great.
I just got her a year ago from the same rescue. I got the Frenchie, and they're great friends. And she is I feel like she's my mini-me.
Yeah.
I'm in love.
Pugs are happy dogs. They're a lot of fun. They're very loving. So I can see why you're very content having a pug. And the Frenchies are really cute too. I grew up with Weimaraners, and that's where my mom showed Weimaraners. And so that's where I started hearing what they were thinking or how they felt, because I had a stepdad that wasn't so nice to them. And so they'd sleep with me. So as a little girl, I felt very loved, because I had these big, beautiful dogs that slept on my bed, but no babysitter would enter my room, not ever, because they were guard dogs too. Yeah, but they were super gentle with me. And so there's a lot of good dogs out there. Do you work missing cases for animals when they go missing?
Love them. I mean, I don't love missing cases all the time, because sometimes I see, like, they may come back, but I actually see them getting out again. And I see the end game instead of what's actually happening.
Yeah.
But I would say my batting average is about, you know, if 8 people called me for missing pets, I honestly want to say I don't even want to do them. But I have found missing pets. It's really funny. This one time, this girl called me for a missing pet, and it was a cat. And I said, the cat is 4 floors below you, and she's with an old lady, and the old lady's not feeding her, just giving her water. So that was huge and wonderful. And then I found a missing pet where it was, and I knew it was deceased. I don't love them.
Yeah.
There's a need, but I'm really grateful. Like, that's not a big, not a lot of people call me for missing.
Well, I mean, that's good. Even with animals, it can be traumatic sometimes. I had an event, and a teenage girl stood up, and she's like, my dog's been missing for 2 or 3 weeks, I think it was at the time. And I just saw a desert field and a coyote. And I just looked at her, and I, in the nicest way, tried to explain to her that he's not coming back. And she was just mortified, because she loved this dog so much. So I'm with you. But it's hard with people as well, because you get the same reactions. They want to know, but they don't want to know. So we walk a very fine line in what we do. Everybody wants a happy ending, and that's not always the case. And next Tuesday for part 2 of my interview with Susan Allen, where she reads my daughter's cat, Honey.